Thank you, Joe. We want to turn to a panel discussion about these issues, but first we wanted to close this part of the program with just a short clip that Marcus produced with Human Rights Watch and the Pulitzer Center called Dear Obama. And I said earlier that one of the challenges in this issue is bringing it to the attention and engaging people in it. And the hope is that through letting people see the individuals as individuals who are affected by the LRA, that we can accomplish that. And this, I think, was the goal of what Marcus was trying to do with the portraits and the testimony in Dear Obama.
Minafuga fu President Obama.
Fu President Barack Obama.
Monsieur le Président Obama.
President Obama.
Minago chupa kape. Chupa President Gameri Jeko. Goyo pai tuadu nyeki.
Bapai na fudala ni ku omba munugbenga atongotongo na fudala ni gbe.
Je regrette beaucoup si vous pourriez mettre fin à cette guerre, puisque jusqu'à présent nous sommes toujours dans l'inquiétude.
Miyame ono kukurare minada sinyesi anorungorongo sane kere. Imirane emo. Inetezi aburo ni imiyoye ngogo paye ma aburo chinita.
À son Excellence, Monsieur le Président Obama, nous étions contents de la promulgation de la loi sur l'éradication des phénomènes LRA. Ce que nous demandons, c'est la mise en œuvre de cette loi-là.
Moi, il faut remercier le Soudan, même ina fun banda fara mu imi balo nani ngaguni oni biniro alati
Femmes sont en brousse, beaucoup sont tuées. Nos filles sont violées par ces rebelles.
Wagumya fradrele atungutongo jireje miki mongi gara sa kunvoyo mikirungo ni kyar hem mikiyogo miyego avere drele minorungo potire igbe na agwa kwara na ego na minorungo hapote
Bede president tajiniko
ani no pagani mungete ometsara ne sogupare belete mukiji aboro iyeka soguvulale fulani mina fulale gine belete
ko jaan brani dundukani kinu vide patirani on tek ko wuli possibilité do ku kunembe manga hamanga
ni la si toto na president titene lo bando na ndoti shoni yeso na paleso asina bageti na ubu il faut le sara si le kanga legeti paleni na legeti sécurité
si de me appelle fuko direna ku kidi ambe vura ijiko turani ngakuni kusa anikiruka zerida wabono ka yejenga ko ku kida ngambe vura na manga wano berungo
anamba musambe kwa kumbana ngakubirungolani kakwambungana ku gungolani.
C'est un plaidoyer qui vient du fort, des forts internes, des fins fonds de la population qui sont victimes de ce mouvement. Merci.
the folks there clearly think they're in a very remote part of Africa, but they know who President Obama is, and they think that President Obama and the United States and the international community have the power to stop the attacks on them. Of course, looking at it from our perspective, it's the issue that I raised earlier of intervention exhaustion. From our country's perspective, we've just had this decades experience of going in and thinking that we could intervene to make a difference, and at an enormous cost to our country and lives and treasure. There's a lot of controversy about what, if anything, we've accomplished in that 10-year period of time. And so, what do you say to people who say we can't go there? This is we have enough troubles at home. We can't take on challenges like this.
Shall I start? I mean, it's, you know, there's no easy answer to that. I think there's a number of reasons why we have to be concerned about the problem of the LRA. One, of course, is stability in the Central African region. Some of the investments in South Sudan have been part of that, and if we want South Sudan and the Central African region to be stable, we have to deal with this problem of the LRA. But I guess I also, based on what I've seen, based on what we've documented, I just think what we see the LRA doing is plain wrong. And part of what we should do as humanity is stand up and say no to things like this. When a group deliberately targets children, when a group has no political ideology anymore other than to prey on a population, when the International Criminal Court has put out arrest warrants for its top leaders, I think it's important that countries like the US and others who are capable step in to help. You know, the Central African Republic, where Joseph Kony currently is, has deliberately requested assistance. And I think it's the responsibility of those who support the International Criminal Court, those who care about the rule of law, that we step up and provide assistance. And it's not an undoable or impossible task. And we can't just leave people like what you've seen just now with no hope, with no help. And I think it's a moral responsibility.
And maybe this is a question for Ida, but if you're in a place like Duru and you've got, as you say, the UN forces a half-kilometer away, that's a significant presence of soldiers, presumably, who could intervene in this kind of situation. Those who make the case for a larger intervention or more targeted international intervention, how do you answer the question about, well, what are the forces that are on the ground there now doing?
Right. Well, the UN peacekeeping forces on the ground now are not going after the LRA. They're there, in theory, to protect civilians. There's a lot more. I think we need a lot more peacekeepers there to adequately protect such a vast area. And there's more they can be doing to patrol, better communication with the communities to know and react quickly when there is an attack like the one in Duru. But with a group like the LRA, we're not going to see an end to this problem until the very top leaders are apprehended. This is a group, the majority of the combatants, the people with the LRA, were abducted themselves. It's Joseph Kony and a handful of other leaders who we need to apprehend to bring an end to this. And I don't think it needs to be in a big military intervention and an audacious use of force across Central Africa, but a very targeted law enforcement operation to apprehend these top guys. And that needs to be done by forces who have the capabilities, professional forces which aren't on the ground now. The Ugandans don't currently have the capabilities to do that type of operation.
And this is a question maybe for Joe and Marcus. Looking at Dear Obama, one of the questions we had when we first saw it at the Pulitzer Center was, is this journalism, is this advocacy? And of course, the Human Rights Watch has an advocacy position on many of the issues that it reports on. We are an independent journalism organization, and we're looking to place stories in American high-end news media that have standards of objectivity and independence. And my own feeling was that this did not cross that line. But I'm interested in your perspective in how this was structured, why you framed it the way you did, and how it fits into the larger journalism that you were trying to do with this project.
Mm-hmm. I think Well, first of all, the video that we produced was just one of many aspects. We have 4 months of material. The reason that we produced the Dear Obama piece first was because this law was being discussed on the Hill. The strategy to enact or to put in place a significant strategy to allow for the carrying out of the principles within this law was being put in place on the Hill. So we needed to appeal directly to those policymakers. We needed to appeal directly to those people that were working out the strategy, trying to put in place something that was effective. And just to carry on a little bit from earlier on what Ida and Annika were talking about, that we are not necessarily advocating an American force to go in here. There are other countries out there that have ownership of Central Africa in terms of their French forces, for example, that work specifically on the ground. They train their troops there. They have a good relationship with the local governments there, and they are very capable of dealing with the local terrain. So we're not necessarily advocating American troops to be on the ground. We're just advocating maybe an American ownership of the problem, and so that they can coordinate and add leadership to that problem. And this is what we were trying to do. We were trying to add a personal voice from the ground to these policymakers. And whilst I'm a journalist, first and foremost, I'm a humanist. And what I try to do is to tell human stories. But I think one of the most effective ways of telling those human stories is allowing the people affected to tell them themselves. And if we are trying to send a message, not just to the American administration, but to the international policymakers, and also to you, I think a personal plea from the people that have been affected is a very powerful way of doing it.
Joe, your thoughts?
I agree with Marcus. I think it's when we did this, I saw it as fulfilling one of the chief roles of journalists, in that we gave a voice to the voiceless. We were able to help people that had no other means of getting their message across, to have a voice. It may have been an audience of one, but this is a man that can do something. So I think that in that respect we did fulfill our role, and it was something that we were very careful about not influencing. We had one question, and it was, if you could say anything you wanted to the President of the United States, what would you say? And what you saw was the result.
Yeah, which I thought was the news value of it, that the people were so aware of what this country far away might do, and what impact we would have.
I thought it was amazing. We would go from village to village in the middle of nowhere, and you'd see T-shirts with Obama. You'd see the pendant that you saw in the video. It's amazing the impact that this election has had on Africans, on people in this region, but it's also created a lot of expectation. If for nothing else, people should know that the people in these areas, the people that are victims every day of the LRA, know that there's a strategy, know that the law has been passed, and they expect something from it.